Okay, so opening GIMP, I'm going to also create a template from scratch. So the new template, I'll go ahead and call this thumbnail. This will be 1920 by 1080 pixels. Click OK. And we got to watch for layers on the right hand side. We have a background layer. We need a graphics layer also. That's just going to be the dark background. And then we'll have one more layer on top of that that is a text layer, but I'll add that after the background image is in. Yours should already have the background template in there, but you will have to add new images. So I'm going to go to File, Open as Layers. I downloaded a sunflowers image. Let's see. We have to convert the color to sRGB. Go ahead and just hit convert. You don't have to worry about what that is. It's just something that GIMP does to translate the image from its color mode to something that it can work with. So now if you look on the right hand side, we have the sunflowers, we have a graphics layer, and that's where I'm going to go ahead and create this graphic. Your template should already have this graphic added to it. I'm going to start from the far left edge using the selection tool, rectangle select tool. Go ahead and add in the graphic. We used black, but it was a semi-transparent black. It's important that we're on the graphics layer for this so we can decrease the opacity. So I'm going to go ahead and fill this in. We'll need a bucket tool for that. The foreground color is black, so all I have to do is click inside of the selected area. It's going to turn that area into a black graphic. I'm going to go ahead and go to the menu bar and choose Select None because we can see that there's a little selection around here. Select None. We're still on the graphics layer, so that's good. We want to decrease the opacity of this because we want to see a little bit of the image. I don't remember the amount from our previous template, but that's something you could check in the layers panel. I'll go ahead and make this, I think 80% looks about right. So I'm going to go ahead and drag that down to 80. Now we have the background graphic for the text to stand out against. Anytime you use the type tool, which is the A in the tools panel, we'll need to create a new layer, and luckily GIMP knows to create a new layer whenever you use the text tool. So I'm going to go ahead and draw out the area that we want the text to appear in. From here I'm going to go ahead and type in sunflowers. Command A or Control A on a PC allows you to select all, and that allows us to also change the size and the style and the color of the text being used. I am not sure what the size is for the template that you have. I imagine it's somewhere around 170, but you can check that in the type settings. I'm also going to use the sans serif, which is what I believe we used. Resize the text. I might make it bold and a little bit bigger. You shouldn't have to adjust any of your text. You should just have to replace the type, replace the actual content, not format it in any way. This little swatch on the lower right hand corner allows you to click on a color dialog box, and then there's an additional icon that is an eyedropper sample. So if we click on that icon, we can hover around the image and apply a color directly from the image. That way the flower that you are highlighting in the thumbnail is the same color as the text. I'll go ahead and pick a yellow that looks okay. You can see the old color and the new color, so you can compare the two. That's the way to verify which color you're about to apply to the text. I think that looks pretty good. In addition to setting that type and treating the type, we applied a guide. So that's clicking and dragging from the horizontal ruler at the top of the screen. Going to drop that down at a spot that lines up the text with the graphic. Your template already has that, so you shouldn't move it. It's important to leave that where it is. From there, if I wanted to move this text, we have to use that home base move tool that we talked about before. Once you click on that tool, it's important to hover over some part of the text. If you don't hover over the text, it's going to try to move something else, like the graphic in the background. This is where it's good to maybe lock some of these layers. Let's say the graphics layer needs to be locked. I'm going to click on the graphics layer and then click on this lock and position symbol, and that is going to ensure that I don't accidentally move the background. Same thing with the flower in the background image. If you click on that layer and then click on the lock and position icon, then it's not going to be selected accidentally. Now I want to move the sunflowers text. I need to lower it so it sits on the baseline on that guide that we created. I'm going to click on the sunflowers text layer. Make sure we're on the move tool on the left. Hover right over some part of the text. Click it and drag. If you want to fine-tune the positioning, you can use the arrow keys on your keyboard. And that's what I'm doing now. I'm using the up and down arrow keys, left and right, to position it just right. So now I've recreated the template. From here, I'm going to go ahead and save the template. I'll keep it on the desktop for now. I'll just call this GIMP YouTube thumbnail template. Remember that the source file, so anytime you're looking through your files, if you see a .xcf, that is the file extension for a GIMP file. That's how you know the difference between the working file, which is something you can edit, and something that is a deliverable that needs to be posted, like a PNG or a JPEG. In our case, you don't want to save it as a PNG because they're too big for YouTube to upload. Let's save it as, I'm going to go ahead and export this as a JPEG. Because this isn't a template, this is an actual thumbnail, I'm going to rename it YouTube _ thumbnail _ sunflower. I don't want this to be a JPEG, or a PNG, I'm sorry. It needs to be a JPEG because it'll compress small enough to upload without losing too much quality. So by changing the file type from a .png to a .jpeg, GIMP automatically knows that you're trying to export this under the JPEG settings, so we can increase the quality all the way to 100% without losing any ability to upload it. So now we have a JPEG. I'm going to go ahead and minimize GIMP for a moment. We'll check that on the desktop just for a second. Okay, so that is one thumbnail template that's been created. So the next time you need to create one, you would start by going to File, and this is important. open as layers. If you don't open as layers, it's going to open it as a separate document and it's going to make a mess of this project. You have to open as layers. I'm going to go ahead and just drop in an image that I have. I don't have another flower image, but just for an example, going to bring in just some image. We'll do this website template. Alright, so if I bring in an image, in this case this image is a little bit too small, so I'll use the scale tool to increase the size. Keeping an eye on your layers panel, you'll see that a new layer has been created. So I'll reposition this with the arrow keys. We can see in the layers panel that a new layer has been created. I'm going to go ahead and lock that one so I don't accidentally move it. We can now edit the text because we have text in a layer that is editable. I'm going to go back to the type tool. Highlight this text. I'm just going to call this website. I want to use the same font, so I'm going to back this up to the first letter, call it website, and delete the S. It's kind of a weird GIMP formatting thing that you have to be aware of. If you delete the whole thing, it's going to go back to a default setting. I'm going to move this over with the arrow keys. Another example of using the color swatches to pull color from the image. So maybe we want this to be that nice red from the background. Using the swatch from the font settings, eyedropper. Got the old color and the current color. Click OK. Alright, so that looks pretty decent. I'm going to go ahead and export this as a thumbnail. File, export as. Change the name from sunflower to, in this case, website. Export. Export. Okay, and that is using GIMP to create thumbnails from a thumbnail template.